Did you know that one of the most effective ways to get beyond conflict in your relationship is to know the three parts of the brain? This is one thing that really helps couples that I see in my counseling office a bunch. And more than that, it helps my husband and I big time. I believe it's going to help you. So stay tuned. I wanted to share this with you. I'm Judy Herman, helping leaders and families create connection beyond conflict. I am a licensed professional counselor in Chattanooga, Tennessee. This is not a counseling session, of course, and this is psychoeducational, but I'm so excited also to tell you about my book, because some of the things I'm sharing today are directly from Beyond Messy Relationships, Divine Invitations for Your Authentic Self. So I am so excited to share this with you. And this is our third time to be together. So last week I talked about relationship dances. Now my book is a memoir, and it's about my stories and how they represent how to get beyond messy relationships. I've had plenty of experience, and you'll find out about that once you find out more about the book. But chapter 3, I do talk about one of my mentors, Dr. Dan Siegel, who is a neuroscientist and interpersonal neurobiology is what his framework is in his teaching. And there's a lot of credentials that he has, which I'll let you look him up. You can actually look him up. What I'm about to share is from my training that I've had under him. But there's three parts of the brain. And even though this is a memoir that I've written, at the beginning of every one of the chapters, you'll come away with some psychological wisdom and spiritual insight. So this is what I cover in chapter 3. It's about being aware of our personal history and why that's important, and how the things that we're not aware of, the body remembers, even though our minds may not. So, and let me just share, like, if you were to take your hand, and I didn't paint my nails, I hardly ever do, but anyway, take your hand and open, and just put your thumb in the middle where your palm is, and then your fingers, 4 fingers over like this. And what this represents is the brain. Okay, this would be a model of the brain, and this is looking this way. So we have what you call vertical integration. So Dr. Dan Siegel talks about horizontal integration, that's the right and the left hemispheres. And so when the parts of the brain are connected neuropathway-wise, when there's communication going on, then it's really a definition of mental health when we can integrate all parts of the brain. So I talk about the right and the left hemisphere. People who have a very well-developed left hemisphere are very logical. People who have a right hemisphere, well-developed, are more creative. So when we have that connection, it makes for more wholeness. But this is called the vertical integration, which there's 3 parts. And again, we've got the thumb and we've got the fingers that overlap that. Now, we have the brain stem. That's represented by this part of my wrist. And there's also an almond-shaped device. I guess it's a device. It's part of the brain called the amygdala. And this is the part of the brain that only knows danger or safety. In other words, when this gets fired up, basically it's like there's no connection, neural connection with the other parts of the brain, which I'll show you what those are. But it's what reptiles know. It doesn't know past or present. It only knows danger or safety. This part of the brain says, I better do something or I'm going to die. And that's where you've got your fight, flight, or freeze. Those are reactions that we want to stay away from, but they happen in a millisecond in our relationships, don't they? So the limbic system is that's the part that goes toward pleasure and away from pain. And in a real brain, okay, so it'll be symmetrical, but this is what mammals have. And every one of us as human beings, we've learned ways to go toward pleasure or away from pain. So, and people who struggle with addictions that don't want to face pain that's necessary to face, and they'll numb that part, but that, going toward numbing that So that would be pretty fired up in a brain scan. So what we want to do is, then we've got the prefrontal cortex, the executive functioning part of the brain. This is the part that can tell the difference between you and other, can empathize, can reason, can plan for the future, can make sense of the past. So we want all of this functioning, all of these neural pathways to connect. But when we get triggered, and again, it happens in an instant in relationships, it's like basically you blow your top. You really do. It's like it. So it takes about 90 seconds for most emotions, for human beings, to learn this, how to do this in order to connect everything. So that's why it's so important, and that's why I talk about taking deep breaths. Because when you do that, it's amazing what you do when you slow down. And I do this all the time in my couples counseling sessions. I have the two, sitting side by side or face to face to each other, so they're making eye contact. But when one or the other gets reactive, or even before we start a session, I'll encourage them to take deep breaths and to be in this present moment. So that's the way that we can handle getting beyond, getting unstuck. There's meaning, and the body remembers. And so again, the body may remember, our minds don't. But when we bring to a level of consciousness and awareness some of our personal stories from the past, then we can move forward. We can reason with that executive functioning part of the brain. We can say, oh, my spouse is not my dad who abandoned me, or my mom who was so strict, or whatever the case is. We can make sense of those stories and come back to this present moment. I hope this is helpful to you. I want to make a couple of announcements about my book. I'm so excited. I did get my book back from my line editor, Angie. Thank you, Angie. I just love Angie. Anyway, I got that back, and I am ready. I'm going to read the entire manuscript through, because this is like my last process. And I need about 30 people, which I have probably maybe that many, maybe 20 or so. But if you would like to be part of the proofreaders for my book, please let me know in a private message, or let me know on the comments here, and I will invite you to the Messy Relationships private group that I have, and you'll have access to that. And this is the time to notice, hey, if there's any misspelled words or grammar issues, but Angie probably got them all, but we just want to make sure before the polished copy is submitted. So I'd love for you to do that. Secondly, I'd love for you to share this video if it's helpful to you, or comment. Love some comments. And then beyond that, would absolutely love for you to sign up for my email list, or tell some of your friends. If you've got 10 friends who could really use this information, please let them know, and I'd love to stay in touch. All right, and thank you so much for joining me. I'm just glad to see you here, and hope that this is information that's helpful, where you can take your deep breaths and realize, hey, we need to tame that reptile, okay? So I'm so glad to meet you here. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.